Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Palvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Health Begins with Mom show. I'm Dorit Palvanov, your host. Today on the show, we are talking about money and more specifically how to make healthy eating more affordable with value-based spending. But before we jump into today's interview, I would like to tell you about a webinar I'm hosting that is coming up. It is called How to Have a Healthy Meal Every Day, Even When You Don't Have Time. This is totally free to you, and I have created 2 time slots for you to choose from, one during the day and one in the evening, and both of them are in Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to get the link for that, the registration page, I'm going to link them up in the show notes below this episode. If you're listening on your iPhone, you can get them from the description. Otherwise, you can go to my website, which is healthbeginswithmom.com/EP-16. So many parents ask me about more recipes and how they don't have the time because they're so busy. I totally get that. I am right there with you. I'm a busy mama of 3 girls. I'm working full time, and time is just such a rare and scarce resource for all of us. And so I've created this webinar to teach you some of my strategies, some of my techniques, some of my hacks, some of the things that I implement in my own home to make healthy eating much more sustainable for us. All right, let's jump into today's interview. So one of the questions I hear again and again in my coaching calls with parents is their struggle with the cost of eating healthy. Now, I personally see healthy eating as a high leverage activity and an investment in my family's health. And so I will invest more money into better quality food and save on other things. So for example, we won't eat out as much. In fact, we almost don't ever. For example, with regards to clothes, I don't buy brand names. With shoes as well. With regards to travel, we'll choose to do like a camping trip instead of an expensive vacation abroad. So stuff like that. And today on the show, I talked to my guest about value-based spending. That's basically drilling down to your values and really identifying what it is that is important for your family. And you basically go from there. So although I can definitely give you some ideas and tips on how to make healthy eating more affordable, I'm not a money coach. And so today on the show, I am talking with Nicole Cooley, who is a money coach and trainer. Nicole helps her clients manage their family finances by building a system to track their spending, creating debt and savings plans, exploring limiting beliefs, and learning about value-based spending. Her company, Money With Moxie, teaches women to be powerful with money and use it as a tool to design their ideal life. So without further ado, here's my interview with Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dorit. How are you doing today? I'm happy to be here.
I'm great. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation today because I think as moms, budgeting and anything that has to do with money interests all of us. So I'm really excited to dive in deeper. So before we talk about money and budgeting and all of that juicy stuff, can you just tell the listeners who are you a mom and a wife to, and how did you become a money coach?
Sure. So I'm a mom to a almost 2-year-old in a couple weeks now. I can't believe it. And my little boy's name is Caden. And I'm married to my husband, Kevin, and we both work from home from our sweet little town up in Bellingham, Washington, which is like up close near the Canadian border, like the very like northwest tip of the United States. So I'm a money coach, and my background is in kind of the finance. I did the corporate thing for a long time. And knowing that I wanted to be a mom someday, I started kind of looking for more flexible options of, trying to find a good work-life balance proactively, like for my family. And through that process, and also my own financial journey that I was on for myself, I found money coaching. And it really is like the sweet spot for me of being able to help people with the day-to-day part of their finances that people struggle with so much. And also being able to run my own business and be a really present mom. So it's been a great sweet spot job for me.
I love what you're sharing, because we talk on this show a lot about intentional living and about being deliberate with your life. And I love how you consciously decided that, things have to change after I become a mom, and you have taken the right steps in order to create this life for yourself. So I love that. So I'm curious, your company is called Money with Moxie. Who's Moxie?
Yeah. Moxie is just a word that I really, really like to describe the character that I want my clients to have when they're kind of dealing with their money situation. It can be so scary for a lot of people and overwhelming to try to think about their numbers. And, it doesn't have to be. And so Moxie to me is just having energy, courage, and determination to kind of tackle whatever you need to tackle in your financial life. And what scares you on your financial to-do list that might be different for other, each person might have a different set of things that scare them. But ultimately it kind of takes that moxie to kind of push through and just get things handled and get things done.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what it actually means to be a money coach and who needs one?
Yeah. So when I say that I'm a money coach, it's different from like a traditional financial advisor, who is kind of a financial advisor most people are familiar with. They're looking at the big picture of your finances. They're really focusing on your investments and your retirement. That varies, of course, but that's kind of the overarching kind of definition. What I do is I help get my clients set up in a system to manage their day-to-day, their monthly finances. So I would get all of my one-on-one clients, set up in a customized system for them to track their spending, prioritize where they want to be spending their money, create debt payoff plans, create savings plans to help them reach their goals. And so I work with couples, so I can help couples work together to figure out how they're going to manage things together. I work with individuals also to do that. But it's really like how you spend your money on a day-to-day basis, on a month-to-month basis, is really the foundation of how everything else is built in your life. And so we're kind of going back to basics and rebuilding that foundation really, really strong.
Mm-hmm. So, and who needs one? Like, why is it important to have a coach?
I think that, anyone who isn't confident or is struggling with the accountability in running their family finances needs a coach. Really, anyone could benefit from a coach. But some people, love this topic, and, they'll be listening to this interview and they'll incorporate some nuggets into the system that they already have. And that's great. I'm glad that they will take things away from that too. But then there'll be people who listen to the interview and they're like, a system? What do you even mean by a system? I don't track anything. Even thinking about doing that is completely overwhelming to me. Or they've tried, to tackle this topic and get a system for their family set up in a couple different ways, but it never really sticks. Those are the people that generally, are really happy to find me and realize that I offer a service to kind of help handhold them through that process.
Right. And actually, no one has ever taught us about managing money. And this is one of the most important things and pillars of our lives, right? So there are three things. Most people struggle with either health, relationships, or their money. These are the three things that will sort of I think if you're unhappy in one of these things, you will feel like you're not having a fulfilled life. So managing money, I think it's one of the most important things. And I can share with you and with the audience that my husband and I have invested a lot of money into money coaching. And we have learned so much. And it has completely changed our entire life. So I can vouch for money coaching, and it really, really does work. And yeah, so in the blog post, which we're going to talk a little bit later about, you are talking about value-based spending. Can you share a little bit about what you mean?
Yes, I can. Yes, I love value-based spending. So the idea of value-based spending is that, it's easy to make a budget work, right? That's like simple math, right? Like inflows, outflows, does it work? But it's not very fun, and it's not very sustainable. And so I want the people I work with to do the harder work, because it is harder work, to go through and figure out, like, what are the things that are most important to me in my life? What are the things that add the most value to my life, where I spend my money? And how can I prioritize and keep those things? But then on the flip side, know that if it doesn't make that list, it needs to be cut out. And that really is, if you're trying to like cut back to pay off debt, or just cut back in general to hit other goals, usually there's some sort of shuffling around and helping my clients do, right? And this is a really great way to go about that, because then you're keeping the things that are the most important to you. And if you really can go back and cut out the things that aren't as important, you can make a lot of progress in your financial life without feeling like, you're not doing anything fun, or
Exactly.
you're keeping what's most important to you. So for example, like I have a client that, when I did my first consultation with her, she's like, I have a crazy busy day about this, she has a big corporate job, and she's like, I love going to get like my daily latte in the morning. Like that's one of my favorite parts of my day. I'm like, cool, awesome. Let's just create a category for that, track how much it's spending you, make sure that we're putting the right amount of money in there for the month. And we're not going to talk about that again unless you truly need to like look at cutting back those dollars. But let's look in all these other places first, because that's something that is like an important little luxury in your day. And those little things are important if they matter to you. So I have some other clients too that eating out as a family, like, going to do things on the weekend to like a restaurant or something, is really important to them as a family. It's like, what they do together. And so we really try to prioritize that in their budget too, and look for other areas where they could be cutting back.
I love that you mention it, because I think a lot of us avoid this conversation and avoid looking deeper into our money and finances because there's so much emotion involved. And what I hear you saying is that, it's just about the key component here is really having your priorities set. So like you said, if this latte is important for you, then it will, be right there at the top. With other things, like for example, for me, I know that organic food, good quality food, is like right there at the top of the list. So for me, for example, buying or eating out is not important, right? It's not a priority for me. So it's all about knowing your priorities. So, okay, great. So I love that you mentioned that, because my next question is tied to healthy eating. And I hear from clients all the time that eating healthy is really expensive. So how do we apply the value-based spending to healthy eating?
Yeah. So part of value-based spending, I think, once you learn more about the process and you start applying it to your own life, you realize that, most people, most of us, just in the modern world that we live in, it's just everything's about more. Like, how can I get more for less? That's kind of just how we live our lives. And that's okay, but we need to reprogram that a little bit to like look at it in a slightly different angle. Because when you really start to explore value-based spending and what that means, a lot of the times it means that it's time to switch to buying less, but buying better. So that's, I think, where my message might differ from, like a traditional, finance expert that's just trying to get you to spend as little as possible. Like, I want you to optimize your numbers. I want you to optimize your life. And that means like spending on organic food, that happens to be one of mine too. And I just did a video a couple of weeks ago where I was ranting a little bit about this link that I came across in like a budgeting group of how to meal plan for the month on like, it was like $400 or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I clicked on it and it was all these like awful foods. Like, it wasn't anything healthy on there. And I'm like, that's not sustainable. That's not a long-term, you have to think about all these different things as they come back to your budget, not just about spending less, but what's the long-term health to your family, or, what are the effects on some of the purchases that you're making? So it's not always just about spending less, and it's about having those priorities and where you want to be spending your money and making the trade-off, right? Because, not everyone can just buy all organic food and still be able to do all the other things. And so that's where the hard part comes in is, okay, if I'm going to do all organic food every month, what can I not do? And where are we going to cut back, right? And that's the hard step that people need to take. But I think that, a lot of my clients are that same way, with the healthy eating. And I think that's just the type of person I tend to attract, probably because I'm 100% supportive of that, and I think spending more in some areas like that is actually better for you in the long run.
Right. And there's also, when I talk about healthy eating and saving some money, there's this list that is created by the Environmental Working Group. It's called the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15, which means that, you don't have to necessarily buy everything organic, right? Because this is a market too. It's a business as well. So it's also understanding and knowing where you can save and what is absolutely necessary to be bought organic and what not. And I'm gonna add that in the show notes below to whoever is interested. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's a good point too with your numbers, is that like you have to learn about some of this stuff, right? And learn about, the Dirty Dozen and where your money should be spent and where it shouldn't. That's part of creating a sustainable budget for your family too, I think.
Right. So how about people who have, let's say, debt? How does this system work in terms of balancing this value-based spending and debt repayment?
So I think that, you have to know what season of life you're in when you kind of start to create your value-based spending budget, and your numbers still have to work. So I am no advocate of credit card debt. I think it just can drag you down and put you in a bad money mindset. And I think that we should just get that paid off as soon as possible in almost all circumstances. And so if you do have credit card debt, that kind of becomes your number one